What's up, everybody? This is TJ Tassone, mortgage broker, owner of Tate & Capital, back again for another video. Super happy. It's finally warming up outside, so it's time to bust out the pineapple shirt. And as always, if this is the first time you're coming to my channel, please like and subscribe at the information below so you have access to my content as it comes out every single Friday. And today what we're going to talk about is 3 tips to help you get your offer accepted in a competitive market in Denver. So let's hop right into it. All right, guys, so let's talk about the first tip to think about when you're trying to get your offer accepted in Denver's market right now. So we're going to talk about appraisal gaps. So an appraisal gap in basic terms is the difference between what the purchase price is and what the home actually appraises for. So in the lender world, lenders are only able to lend on basically the lower of the appraised value or the purchase price. So we can only give you the money based upon what the home is actually worth. So let's use an example. So let's say that you're a consumer, you want to buy a house at $500,000. But in order to be competitive, you need to offer $550,000. So the appraisal gap could state something about your ability to cover the difference between $500,000 and $550,000. As I previously mentioned, lenders will only lend on what the appraised value is, right? The lower of the appraised value of the purchase price. So if the appraised value is actually $500,000 and you agreed to pay $550,000 and you have an appraisal gap that says that you have a $50,000 appraisal gap, that means that you acknowledge that you're purchasing the property for $50,000 more than what it's worth, and you're adding that $50,000 to your bottom line. So in the market right now, a lot of what we're seeing is appraisal gaps are very necessary for you to be able to be competitive and be able to win the offers that you're submitting. The amount at which the appraisal gaps are is going to be very dependent upon what the competition is, how expensive the property is, what location it is. If you're looking at adding any additional terms to your contract, there's some things to think about. Appraisal gaps right now, super important. That's the basis of how an appraisal gap works. It could be an appraisal gap could be a small amount. It could be $10,000, $5,000, $20,000, all the way up to $100,000 or $200,000, always dependent upon what other competition is. So it's super important to understand that the appraisal gap situation is something that you're really going to be required to do if you want to be competitive. But most of the time, the appraisal gaps don't actually end up coming into play. And the part that's nice about that is when you're working with a really good real estate agent, you're going to be looking at all the houses that are going to be available in your price range, and they're going to look at all of the other houses that have sold in that particular price range. So if you're looking at a house at $500,000 and you have an appraisal gap to $550,000, then you take a look at, well, are there other houses in the area that are also worth $550,000? Because if the house ends up appraising at $550,000, you don't actually have to pay $50,000 more. That's just what you agreed to pay. That's what the home is worth. The appraisal gap only comes into play if the home appraises at a lower number than what you agreed to spend. So it's always really important to do your due diligence when you're looking at these appraisal gap situations, because like I said, you may not have to have it come into effect, or it might be the full amount that you're willing to pay and you were prepared for it. So those are some things to think about. So I want to talk about the next thing that can make your offer stand out and be more competitive and more likely to win the offer. All right, guys, so the next one I want to talk about are post-occupancy clauses. So post-occupancy clauses are very prevalent in today's market. Most offers are going to have them, as they are something that helps the person who's selling the house, the listing agents, the sellers associated with the property. It's really important to have that because the market is so competitive right now. If you're selling your house, the question is, well, where are you going to go? Are we going to be able to find a new house really quickly? So what a post-occupancy clause does is it sets an amount of time that the person who's selling the house has to remain in the property before the new buyer is able to move in and retain the premises on the property. The maximum post-occupancy clause that you're allowed to have in Colorado is 60 days. Reason being is lenders require you to move into your primary residence within 60 days. So that's the amount of time that you're allotted as part of a transaction. Now, having a post-occupancy clause makes you competitive is the person who is making the offer, right? The borrower or the buyer is making an offer. they can say, we're going to charge you for the post-occupancy clause as if you are renting the house from us, because now technically we own the property. So you could do that in $10 a day, $100 a day, whatever you agree to. That's one option. But what if another offer comes in and says, well, we'll give you 1 month for free, but then you have to pay us for the second month? Then you're no longer as competitive. So a lot of times what we're seeing with the post-occupancy clauses is people are prepared to just let the seller stay in the house for the full 60 days at no cost as a way to be competitive. If you're looking at combining the tips that I talk about today as part of your offer to be more competitive and really stand out, you're going to expect to not charge for the 60-day post-occupancy clause, and you're going to have a high appraisal gap, whatever that may be, for what's available in the market and what you're able to do as a consumer. Post-occupancy clauses, you're going to see it. You're probably going to need it. So be prepared to have that on your offer, as that's something that's definitely going to help you stand out and help you win the deal. So now I want to talk about the next scenario in which you can make your offer stand out and be more competitive. All right, guys. So the third thing I want to talk about, and I would say probably the most important function of making a competitive offer, is addressing concerns about what comes up on an inspection. So let's talk about what an inspection is, why it's important, how it impacts the transaction. So an inspection, you have an inspector or home inspector come out and look at the property. They're going to get up on the roof. They're going to look at, is the roof in good shape? Is the foundation in good shape? Does the water work? Does the electricity work? Are the basic functions of the house, the heating, the cooling, does that stuff work? And then they might find little things like electrical outlets maybe out of place, or adding smoke detectors, things of that nature. But that's just kind of a basic understanding of what it is. So it's important that when you're purchasing a property, you understand that if there's going to be things that you're going to contest about the property and whether you purchase it, the other side of the transaction wants to know, are you going to make them pay to resolve those things? Are we going to have to come down in price and cost for that? Or are you okay with just taking the brunt of the expense and repairs on your own as a new homeowner? So when you're out putting offers in order to be competitive, you're going to want to have some variation of the three things that we talked about, right? We're talking about inspection items, we're talking about appraisal gap clauses, we're talking about post-occupancy clauses. But if we have 20 people putting offers in on a house, and one person says, well, I want the seller to fix everything that comes up on an inspection, that's probably not going to be as competitive as if you're a buyer that comes in and says, you know what, I don't care about what's wrong with the property, I'll fix everything. That's how you stand out and you make yourself look really competitive. But again, it's very individualized. It's based upon what you're willing to spend as a consumer. Because what if you find out that there's $100,000 worth of repairs? Does that mean that you're still okay with it? So we have ways in which we can write contracts where we can say, I will be okay with all inspection items, maybe up to $1 threshold. So maybe we set it at, maybe it's 10,000 or maybe it's 20,000. Maybe it's specific to health and safety items. In order for us to move in, we have to make sure that the house is perfectly okay, habitable, there's nothing structurally wrong, the roof's gonna fall in on us. But outside that, we're totally fine. So those are some, kind of really broad or basic examples of what you could use for waiving inspection items. But like I said, if you want to be competitive in this market, you're going to have some variation of the appraisal gap, some variation of a post-occupancy clause, and some variation of manipulating what's going to happen with an inspection. There's a lot of things that can come up in an inspection that you're not privy to before you start the transaction. A seller is required to basically give you a really drawn out list of things that they personally know are wrong with the property. And if they don't, and you can prove that they knew about it, then it's illegal and you can actually take them to court for that. But most of the time, we don't know what's going on. So you have to be okay with saying up front, well, we don't know what's going to be wrong, but we're just going to have to deal with it as it comes up. If you can address that in a very strong offer with a really good real estate agent up front, then you have a very good chance of getting your offer accepted. So, right now this market's very competitive, but it's not impossible to get a house. We see transactions happen every single day, and there's lots and lots of people that are looking for houses and lots of people that are selling houses. So those are some things to keep in mind if you're trying to get your offer accepted. And as always, guys, I love making these videos. I welcome feedback. I welcome questions. It's what I do. I love being able to give guidance on specific situations. So if you ever have any specifics about what you need to do to put in a really competitive offer, or what mortgage financing looks like, or what it's like living in Colorado as a whole, I welcome all those conversations. I really look forward to it. And as always, if you have not been to my channel before, please like and subscribe at the information below, so you'll have access to my content as it comes out every single week. And as always, I'll see you on the next video, and thank you so much. Have a great day.